share my screen. Okay, so the last class, right? We have completed working on only the first test case, which is the positive one. Now, what exactly we are going to do today? We're going to execute the second one, but we're going to make that test case as a fail or find the defect, right? So similar way, everything is same, right? So I need to open IE, making sure that IE is open. I need to enter that URL www.facebook.com, making sure that I can enter that valid URL. After entering the URL, the third step would be what? I need to enter the invalid username, then invalid password, and trying to log in, because my test case is basically, this is a negative test case we are going to execute, right? Let me go back here. Similar way, I need to enter invalid username and invalid password. Now, for the data, they already provide something, invalid username or invalid password. So now, once I'm going to execute that test case, once I'm going to execute this 5-step, right? So my expectation would be, I need to run step by step to make sure everything is working fine or not. Now, I open the IE or age, which is working fine. So similar way, I just need to copy and paste from the previous test execution actual result and paste it here. So IE is already open. So once I enter the URL, right? So URL is open. Copy, paste. Okay, now what I'm trying to do, I need to put the invalid username, right? So even though it's an invalid username, if I can enter that, means like successfully I entered the invalid username on it, right? Similar way, I need to put the invalid password. So I only need to do just make changes on the step and make as invalid password. Now, if I'm going to make the last step as a fail to write a defect or bug, right? What I need to do, let's say here, I'm going to put invalid username. I put invalid password and trying to log in. Once I click on login, if I'm able to log in and see the Facebook homepage, right? That means what? That means this functionality is not working as expected. Why this functionality is not working as expected? Because if I put invalid username and invalid password and trying to log in, they're going to give me some type of message or error saying that your username or your password is not correct, or you need to put your right username and password to log in. But for this execution, still I put invalid username and invalid password, right? And try to log in, and I'm able to log in and see the Facebook homepage. That means whatever the information I put it here, right, still is invalid, but try to log in, means my expected result is I'm not able to see the Facebook homepage, but still I can see that, right? That means this is a problem or issue or defect. Now I need to make sure the last step, right? My expectation is here would be user unable to log in to Facebook account. Now, once I click to log in, all I can say, because this step I'm going to make as a fail so that successfully log into the Facebook account, right? So all 4 steps in here is pass, but the last step is fail. Why is going to I make that step as a fail? Because my expectation here is user able to log into the Facebook, user unable to log into the Facebook account. This is my expectation, right? For the last step, once I click on login, because I put invalid username and invalid password. But once I click on login, I see that user successfully logged into the Facebook account, which does not match our expected result. That's why we make that step 5, as a fail step, and we put the status as a fail. So once you make some step, or once you're going to execute the test case, right? So whatever the step you're seeing that fail, based on that fail step, you need to create a bug or defect. So now we are going to start working on how to write a bug or bug lifecycle. But before that, if you have any questions about this execution, or how I can make, or how I can find that defect, or why I make that step number 5 or line number 5 on this test case make as a fail. If you do have any questions, okay, you can ask me right now. Then I can move forward with the bug lifecycle. No questions? This makes sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Now, so bug lifecycle, we're gonna cover for today's class basically bug lifecycle, or how the bug need to be reported and stuff, right? To write a defect, it might take another class. I'm not sure if we can write it down today or not, but we do have the template here. So based on this template, we'll be working on that, how to write a bug. But before we need to write a bug, we need to understand exactly few more topic. So the first topic is what is called defect, or what is called bug or error, failure, right? So there is some terminologies you need to understand. Okay, what is error? The simplest way, once you will be working as a QA in the office, if any developer develop some application, in the development phase, if they find any type of issues in their coding side, they called as a error. So this is for the basic knowledge for what is called error. Now, if we consider the developers basically focusing on this error once they're trying to build a application, right? But there is another thing is also called error. Let's say I'm trying to log in, not the login, I'm trying to open the Edge and enter some URL, any type of application URL. Or let's talk about the Facebook. I enter www.facebook.com and hit enter. Sometimes you're gonna get like 400 error, or some server issue or server error. So that's called another error, but this is basically the environmental issues, right? So you can see those stuff later on. I'll try to show it to you what type of like the error code and stuff, just to make sure or make understand yourself to be clear for this. So error basically comes on once the developer try to build something from the scratch or existing application in the coding phase. After that error, defect and bug. This is the two most important things you guys need to understand and you guys need to deal with daily basis in the office. Okay. So what is called defect? So defect is basically nothing but I executed one of the test scenario or test case, right? Just right here. Right here. So in the step 5, I mentioned here, I need to click on login button and my expectation is user unable to log into the Facebook account. So this is my expected result. And once I'm going to execute that exact step, even though I put invalid username and invalid password, right? So the user is still able to log into the Facebook account. So what happened here, basically, my expected result and the actual result does not match. That's why I made that step as a fail step, right? So this is where I found a problem, which is called defect. So defect is basically once you are trying to execute some step and you can find that your expected result is not matched with the actual result, that time you need to write a defect. Now, same thing, if I can go back to this slide, right? They mention here, error found by the tester which is called as a defect. Same thing I told you, right? The actual result does not match with the expected result, which is called the defect. Same thing. So once I'm going to, so very basic thing, right? So once I'm going to write a test case, after that I need to execute the test case. Once I'm going to execute the test case, if any expected result does not match with the actual result, once I'm going to execute that, I need to make sure I need to report that problem or defect. And I need to make this a status as a fail so that I can write a defect out of this step, right? So this is the definition of defect. Now, what is called bug? So defect and the bug is the same thing, but there's a slightly difference. Slightly difference means like once you report the problem or defect to the development team or to anyone, if they agree your problem findings or that defect, that time is called as a bug. So first thing first, you see this portion. Okay, let me increase that little bit. Okay. All right. So error. Basically, development team work on it. Once they build the code, if they find anything, that's called error, right? Then QA, once you'll be executing your test case, you find something or some issues, right? Then you need to write a defect. Once you write the defect, it goes back to the development team. And if they said, okay, your finding is correct and we'll be working on it, that time the same thing called as a bug, because they accept your problem or the findings, then it's going to be bug. So basically defect and bug is the same thing. Defect and bug is the same thing, but in the definition wise, there's a slightly different. Now, what is called failure? So defect, bug, error, which is fine. What is called failure? Failure is basically once you find the problem, right? Or the situation sometimes happen is like sometimes some QA was not able to find the problem and they push the same code to the production with the problem and it reaches to the end user. And if the end user able to find that, that's called a failure. So mostly like you don't need to work with a lot of failure stuff because there's a lot of phases need to be done before it's moved to the production. But you need to know like exactly what is called failure. So failure is nothing but, let's say I work as a QA, right? I'm very bad QA. I just like, missed few more bugs. I missed that bug. I was not able to find I was not able to find the defect and I did not report that defect to the development team and somehow is missed. I just make that like, the QA patch, generate the report and push that problem to the production without knowing any other team, right? So that time, the end user or our end customer who is going to use that particular application, right? Let's say Facebook. Let's talking about the Facebook so you can understand more about it. Let's say this is the one, right? So I'm a very bad QA in the office, right? So I was not able to do my work properly. What I'm gonna do, they said these functionalities I need to validate, which is Facebook login functionality. So to validate that Facebook login functionality, as I told you, right, how many test cases I can write down only little bit of this functionality to validate? How many test cases I can write it down? I can write it down 20 different test cases only for this particular login scenario. Now, if I can tell me how I can figure out that 20 test cases, because this is only we can see like two boxes here and one login button, right? Now I already wrote it here for you guys only 4 test cases, but I say like the 20 test cases I can write it down. Anyone can help me to say like how I can come up with 20 different test cases out of this login functionality? Anyone? This is might be the interesting stuff to find out how you can guys find out the test cases out of this small piece of functionality. Anyone can like unmute yourself and like you can explain if you want to.
You mean examples?
Yes.
Yes, we can say that you can't see when you write, you can't see the username or you can see the password. Or
Yeah, 4 of them already I wrote it right in the last class. Like valid username, valid password, invalid username, invalid password. I make the combination with valid and invalid. So 4 of them are there. But out of that 4, how many I can write it down still?
You can check forgot password, create new account.
No, forgot password is a different functionality. Don't drop the forgot password. I don't need to consider this.
And
I just
if you put right username, right password, still you cannot log in.
Okay, right username, right password is still I am not able to log in. This is the scenario or test cases I already covered here, right? So I mentioned here in the first test case, you see, valid username, valid password.
Can I tell one thing?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
My name is Chandru. If you give empty password and empty username means, then login means that's also one type of scenario.
Exactly. So that's why I'm trying to tell you. So that's why I'm going to explain to you guys, right? So as many way you need to find or trying to see how that piece of functionality we can validate, right? So last class I already worked with the 4, right? So I put valid username, valid password, trying to log in. So I use what? I use the valid email address, right? Valid email address, valid password. I made the combination valid, invalid. Similar way, they said, if you don't have the email address, still you can use your cell phone number to log in or any phone number, right? So similar way here, instead of that Gmail account, right? or valid user email address, I can use the cell phone number to validate. So if I can add cell phone number to validate, again, there's gonna be different test case, right? For additional test case with this. Then top of it, if I can consider I don't need to enter anything, just make as 2 blank and try to log in. This is another scenario.
Yeah, that I told.
Exactly. Then I can only put the username, make that password
Password
field
empty. And
then try to
username
log
as
in.
empty and password
Exactly.
also giving.
Then similar way, I make password field and
Empty.
this make empty, try to log in. This is my another test cases.
Yeah.
Now,
and invalid.
again, I can add valid and invalid, right? So I can validate this field with valid password, empty
Password.
password, valid username, empty password,
Empty
try to
password.
log in, and invalid username, empty password, try to log in. This is another test case. So if you combine all the test cases, it must be like more than 20 test cases. So as a QA, once you'll be working on any of the projects or any of the companies, right, you need to make sure you need to cover all the possible test cases and try to find the bug. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now go back to the slide. Okay. So as I told you, right, what is called the failure? Let's say I am a like the QA, but I'm the bad QA in the office, right? So I'm working on these projects. Now I only validated for this small login functionality only. I wrote 4 test cases. I execute 4 test cases. I close that. That's fine. Now I did not validate something like, you know, if I can enter invalid username, valid password, or invalid username, make that password field as blank, try to log in. I did not test that test case, or I did not cover that test case. And this is the problem, right? And without knowing anyone, we push that problem to the production. Now, what happens if any end user, who is the end user? So you, me, and all of them are the end user for the Facebook. So if we could find that problem, basically, so let's call as a failure in that particular application. All right, then what is called missing or wrong? So it's a simple thing. If any requirement, as you remember, like there's a few requirement documents, business requirement documents, use cases, UI specs, application design flow. So on those documents, if any requirement was missing or not to cover, once you're gonna build or test that application, which is the missing or the wrong information, okay, for that. But to report this stuff, basically the missing and things, if you could find it, that's fine. If it's not, basically, so there's a lot of team involved with it to refine those requirements and build something and make changes in the later on for that. But like, you know, you're good to go with this. But all you need to know, these 3 are the most important things you need to know. How to write a defect, we're going to work with that. How to write a defect, definitely. Once you find the problem, simple way, once you find the problem, once you're going to execute the test step, if anything does not match your expected result, and like when you're going to execute that actual result, then you need to write a defect. And once your defect need to be written and accepted by the developers, which is called a bug. And the failure, if you're going to miss or developer going to miss anything and reaches to the end user or the customer, and they found something called as a failure. That's it. And Fault basically is nothing but it's kind of like if any behavioral issues you can find in the production or any of the environment while you're kind of testing, if anything is not behaving as expected in the application flow, that's called a fault. So these three are the most important things you need to remember, right? Now, what is bug or defect life cycle, or how it's going to work? So we are in basically this phase, right? We are trying to write down the functional testing, executing, right? And out of this positive, happy path, negative testing, we're working on it, right? Now, for the defect, once we are going to work with the defect, the regression testing is coming up. Now, we're going to cover the defect life cycle and how you're going to involve with the regression testing. We're going to show it to you. Okay. Let me pull that. Okay. This is going to be the defect life cycle. Just give me 1 minute. All right. So defect life cycle, right? So as I told you, right? So come back to here. So I found this is the problem. All I need to know. So I need to report that problem. So how I can report that problem? I need to write a defect. So once I write a defect, basically, so the defect would be new, right? Because I found something new once or while I was executing the test case. So once I write the defect, what I need to do, I need to assign that defect to whom? To the developer, right? Because developer or development team basically need to work on that particular defect and they need to fix it. So once you assign that defect, all they need to know is they can validate that defect and make that status as an open. Means they accept that defect and they said like, okay, we'll be working on that particular problem. Now, once we make that defect open, right? There's a few more things need to cover. So we'll do this part later on. So once the defect is open and developer work on that defect, they need to fix it, right? And send it to you basically as a QA. Once you report that defect, you need to assign that defect, then defect need to be open, then defect need to fix. After they fix that problem, they're gonna send it to you for testing or check that defect to make sure whatever issue you already reported is been fixed or no more issues existing for that particular functionality. So this is the step basically. Once they're gonna send you for pending retest, then you need to retest that problem. What I'm going to retest, okay. I'm basically going to retest since I reported here this last step, my expectation is user not able to log in because I entered the invalid username and invalid password. But I reported still user able to log in because this functionality is not working. Still, I can put the invalid username and the password, but try to log in. That's why I report a bug, right? So developer, once they receive it, they fix that and send it back to the QA for retest. Now, once I receive that, my first focus would be, I need to check this 5th step is working or not. Now, how I can go to the 5th step without doing this 4 step? I cannot move to the 5th step, right? So no matter what, I have to execute again all these 4 steps. Then I can reach that 5th step and make sure is that problem is already fixed or not. So if the problem is fixed, what happened here? If the problem is fixed, so if the problem is fixed means like you already verified the problem is no longer exist on that particular functionality, then you can close your bug. Means the bug has been tested, working fine, and no issues on that particular test cases. Now, once you're trying to retest and you can see the bug is still not fixed, what do you need to do? You need to reopen the same problem, right? Why you need to reopen? Once I find the bug, there's the new issues I found. I assign to the developer start working on it, right? Then they fix. Then after the fix, I am going to retest, right? If my retest is working fine, straight away I need to close the bug. That means this bug is no longer valid or the issue is resolved. If still that bug is valid, means the bug is not fixed yet, what I need to do? I need to reopen the problem one more time, the same problem. Then I need to again assign to the developer, and developer need to again open it. They need to fix the problem. They need to send it back to you and retest. So this is basically the very common stuff for bug lifecycle. So once you have new problem or new issues bug, all you need to know, you need to report that. And once you report, developer need to work on it. They send it to the QA. QA need to validate. If that issue is resolved, you need to close it. Similar, another path, right? So you open the bug, you assign to the developer start working on it, developer fixes, send it to you for retest. Once you retest that problem, you see still that one is an open bug and still that one is not working. All you need to do, you need to reopen and assign back to the development team again, saying that like, okay, whatever I already reported, you said it's working fine, but it's not working. This is my screenshot. This is the step. Can you go ahead and work one more time on it? That's it. So reopen and new assign bug and close bug is fine. Now, once I am going to report any bug, right? There's a 4 possible things might be happen. If they accept the bug, let's say I report the defect and they accept the defect and the bug has been accepted by the developer, they need to work on it. If they are not going to accept the defect, why they are not going to accept the defect? There's a possible things might be coming up. One is they can reject. Why they are going to reject that bug? Because sometimes once you are going to execute, right, that time might be you find some issues and the similar test case executed by the other QA, they may not find the same problem. So you reported one bug, and once they're trying to execute that scenario, or execute that step over and over, they're not able to find the bug, or they're not able to find the problem. That time they said, okay, we're going to reject your defect. So the status for that bug would be rejected. Second thing, let's say you're working on Facebook homepage functionality, right? What is the prior functionality for this Facebook homepage testing or Facebook homepage feature? I need to log in, right? Log in to where? In the Facebook. Let's say I found something while I was working for this Facebook homepage functionality. I found some login issue, right? So I have two QAs in the team. Let's say David and Smith. So David and Smith both are working on this particular functionality, and the prior functionality to login, Facebook login. And at the same time of execution, they found login problem and they report same issue to the development team, right? So basically, even there is a login issue for the Facebook, but they reported twice. That time, what they're going to do, they said as a duplicate bug. That's why they remove one and they keep one, because it's the same bug. That's why they said the duplicate bug. Sometimes this happen because if you're working with the bigger team, might have like 6-7 QAs and executing some of the similar functionalities, sometimes they report similar bug by the different QA. So once they report the similar type of bug in the different QAs, they need to keep one, or maybe 2 reported, just keep one, remove one, or 3 reported, remove 2, keep one. If it's a similar bug. That's why they said the duplicate might be the status for that. All right, so this is fine. Duplication is done. Reject the bug is fine. Now, what is called deferred? Okay, let's say I am working on Facebook homepage, right? So I report something like the very low level, like low level bug, which is, let's say, not the functionality bug, kind of like if I can go to the home page, so they misspell the Facebook, if FACEBOK, they misspell the name of the Facebook. So I log that bug as a low level bug, right? But I do have the other severe bug or high level priority bug need to be worked on the first phase, right? I don't want to spend much time on to fix this because this is not a functionality failure. This is just a UI bug. Anytime they can fix it. So it's a low level bug. So once you can find or report something like the low level bug, team need to decide and saying that, okay, let's work on the severe bug first, then we can touch this bug. That time they put that bug or the defect status as a deferred, means we're not gonna work that bug right now, but we're gonna hold that bug. We'll be working on that issues later on. So deferred, this is very common term. Once you'll be working in the office, you can say like, okay, this defect or this issues will be deferred. We're going to working on later on. So that's why I need to know like the how or which level of functionalities failure need to be report as a the deferred status. All right, then final thing is like not a bug. Let's say I report as a bug or I report as a issues, and they said, you know what, the time you're going to execute that, you may think this is a problem, but this is not a problem. They just need to say like, okay, we're not going to work on that issues or bug, then say like it's not a bug and just put as a close, or they just like remove from the list. So this is the general, very general phase of like, the how the bug life cycle works. We're gonna see another slide which may have a little more information here. This is the status basically, the similar thing. Once a defect found, we put as a status as a new, then we need to open, as I told you, right? We need to assign. Then once we are going to assign, there is a checkbox by who? By the developer, to make sure that they're going to work on that issues or they're going to reject. If they say, okay, you're very good, you find a valid issue, we're going to work on it. Similar way, they can work on it, they fix it. They need to verify by they send it to verify the same issues for the QA. They need to verify it. If it's working fine, no issues, they close it. Similar way, if it's again issue, we need to reopen that, and status starting from here again, open, assign, and again they say like issue or not, they need to work on it. Okay, so if you send it to the developer and developer say this is not an issue, so they disagree with you, they just reject that bug. So this is basically the same thing we covered, but this is the status, how they're gonna report that. Okay, all right, last slide for the bug life cycle. So I already covered new, assign, reject, fix, everything. Why I'm going to pull this slide? Because as I told you, right? So there's a very important type of test case execution or testing you need to perform, which is regression testing, right? So the regression testing, two type of regression testing we do have it. One is basically once you are going to report the issue and once the issue is fixed, I'm going to execute the test case, right? To making sure that there's a two check. First check is I need to make sure the step or the issue I already reported is fixed or not. If that issue is fixed, I'm going to close that defect which I already reported. So this is first thing. Second thing is, since once I'm going to execute in the first phase of this test case, these 4 steps are working fine. Now, once I report the problem to the development team, since they already fixed that, to making sure once they fix that existing problem, they are not going to break whatever the existing functionality or the step are working fine, they are not going to break that stuff. That's why I need to execute the whole test case one more time to make sure. I'm going to check 2 things on it. One is my issue I reported is working fine. Another one is trying to fix that issue, the existing steps are not failing. So once I'm going to validate the whole test case to make sure that to fix that problem or fix that particular bug, the existing one is not broken or no issues at all, that type of testing called regression testing. And you need to do that regression testing over and over once you'll be in the office. So that's why I pulled this Excel sheet here, not the Excel sheet, sorry, this slide here. So this part, log a new bug, assign, reject, fix, you know that, right? So you see the regression, that's why I mentioned it here. So which phase basically you need to do the regression testing, and regression testing is most important once you will be in the office or once you will work with any of the projects. This regression testing would be the must, because every time they say, can you perform the regression testing? So as I told you, two type of regression testing, right? So one type of regression testing is basically bug related. What is bug related? As I mentioned, right? So once you have reported that bug or the problem, report the problem, assign, fix, then make sure that the bug you report is working fine now, and the existing functionality or the existing step is not broken. So your one regression testing is done. So one regression is done, which is related with the defect. What is called the other regression? Still is called the regression, but regression testing is basically two types. So the second type of regression testing is basically anything before it goes to the production, or any high level validation for those application. Your manager or your senior or your lead, they're trying to tell you, can you perform the quick regression? What does that mean, quick regression? Quick regression means like whatever the functionality we already worked on it, and there is no bug or no issues at all. So we're gonna push that to the production. Before we're going to push that production, we're going to one more check to make sure that whatever we already worked on it is everything working as expected, so that like once you can push that code to the production or push that particular functionality to the production, there is no issues at all. So this quick regression sometimes helps to prevent this phase, failure. So failure is basically what? You miss something and end user found that problem or find that issues. So I already worked on a lot of test cases. I'm pretty sure as a QA, I covered everything, and I'm happy with my testing and saying that there's no issues at all. And if everything is good to go for the production deployment, right? That time, right? Let's say like the tomorrow is my production deployment. Now, what my senior or my lead or my manager saying that, can you perform one more time the quick regression just to make sure that whatever you have done so far with all functionalities, all module or whatever, right, or the features, just do the quick regression, making sure that there's no failure or the code is stable. That's the time you need to perform the quick regression, making sure that like everything is working as expected. So the quick regression you need to perform before is pushed to any environment, or most likely push that particular functionality or code to the production. All right, any questions so far? Any questions so far? Development.
When we do the regression, how do we write it, or how do we
Write the test case? It's the same thing. Same test cases, you need to write it down similar way, but the regression test case writing is might be a little bit high level of test case you need to write down. High level of test case means like you don't need to mention like, you know, I need to open IE, enter URL, www.facebook.com. So regression testing is basically like the high level of test case writing. I'll show it to you another class, because next class I need to cover how to write the defect, right?
Okay. So we don't correct our Excel sheet that we said fail, and let's say it's fixed. So we don't keep it as fail. Or we put on the comments that this bug is fixed.
Okay, so here's the thing. So once I'm gonna execute that in the first time, what I'm gonna do, I need to keep that Excel sheet as my record and I need to add the
Comment. Okay.
screenshots, right? So this is my first time execution. So then I mentioned what? Regression, right? So this is the test case. Out of this test case, you need to write down another test case, which is your regression test case, making sure that you need to execute this similar thing one more time and make sure that issue you reported is no longer valid issue and the functionality was failure is working now as expected. So all you need to do, you just need to copy the whole test cases, write down the another test case. That should be a regression test case, and you need to keep the both. So this one should be here as well as the other regression test case would be here too, so that they can identify the first time you find the problem once you're going to execute the test case number TC login 002, right? And the TC login 002 again once you do the regression for, I don't know, like TC login 005, let's say, right? So 5 is pass.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
So every time we find the bugs or the defects, so every time we test it and every time it's failed, so we do the for every
So
time
every
fail,
time
we do-
I got your questions basically.
No, no, no.
Every time you need to report the problem, every time you need to do the regression no matter what, because the biggest catch is, let's say like I reported this problem, right? They fix that particular issue. They might break something else, which is like step 3. Maybe it's not working. I don't know. I need to perform the regression. So until basically the whole test case is passed, you need to perform the regression, because
So
they
every time
fixed
we
one,
write
they
down the
broke
test
one.
cases,
This is the behavior basically for the developer. So sometimes they fix one, they break another one. All
Okay.
right. That's why you, the QA, need to validate until that test case need to be whole pass. You need to validate each and every step once you report the bug. Make sense?
No, my question is like every time we fail or every time it's failed, so if for the every time failed, we need to write it down the test case again and again, or
No, every time, like once you make that fail, you need to report or write the bug, right?
that's
But
right.
the test case is one. All you need to do, you just need to copy and paste. That's it. Because I can use
So
the same
test case
test
will
case.
be the like suppose it is a test case login 002, right?
Right.
So I have to change the status. That's the thing.
You just need to change the status, right?
Okay.
It is the same execution, but you need to change the status.
So no
But in-
changing with the test case ID or anything. Just the test case ID will be the same.
Yeah, so it depends on the company. Some company they mention like, okay, every time you make a fail, so every time you execute the test case, right? Let's say the thing is like I report, because they need to generate the execution report based on your effort of that particular functionality need to be tested, right?
Mhm.
So they say like, okay, if it's that's what I'm saying. It depends on the company. If the company say you don't need to, one test case should be fine for your regression and the basic functionality check, you're good to go. You don't need to do anything. Once you execute that, if the second time is working fine, I just make this change a step as a pass and I just close that. That should be fine. Some of the company, they are saying once you find any problem, keep that test case, all right, and write another test case for the regression. That time what I'm gonna do I need to write a new test case? No, because I'm going to validate some existing stuff, right? All I need to do, I just need to copy the same test case, just make changes the test case ID, refer to the existing test case and execute that. That's it.
Okay.
So I have 2 documents basically, or 2 test case. That's all.
So suppose first time we like the step 5 we fail, right? So that's we reported bug.
Mm-hmm.
So the second time they fix it, this is that there's the step 5 is passed, but the step 3 is failed.
Right.
So it depends on the company. We have to make
It depends on the company. If they say like if you can execute in the same test case, it should be fine. That time what I need to do, I need to make this step as a pass, as you told me, right? Make that step as a pass, and I need to make step 3 as a fail, right? I
That's
just
right.
make 3 as a fail.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you very much.
Yeah, I make 3 as a fail.
Yeah,
That's it. Done. Now, if the company say no, you know what? You need to report or you need to write the regression test case. That time, what I'm gonna do, I'll just keep that same thing for the first time execution, right? This is my first time execution. I execute the first test case, and this step make as a fail. Now, all I need to do for the regression, I just need to copy the existing one, come here, I can show it to you quickly. Just paste, make sure this regression, I just change the ID number as a 5 for the reference where I'm gonna get it, right? For here, right?
yeah,
In the comment section, I just make that the reference test case ID or make the different reference test case ID in here. Just put as a referral or reference, making sure just put REF reference test case ID is similar as TC underscore
005.
login underscore 005, so that I can make sure that there's another test case referred to this existing one, right? Then go back to the execution list. This time I make this step as a fail, this step as a pass, and you told me the step 3 as a fail, right? I
Yeah,
just
that's
make
right.
this step as a fail, right? This step as a fail. Now what I'm gonna do, like again, I need to report that to the development team, right? So developer need to work on it, and once they're fixed this step 3, they're gonna send it to you. You can validate that, right?
Yeah,
Again, that time all I need to do, I need to copy that, because they told me, my boss or my manager, they told me to keep all the regression test case separate, right? I just make same thing, make as 6. I just change that step ID, right?
yeah,
This time, this should be fixed, means it's gonna be passed, right?
that's right.
And I'm gonna go back to the first test case as a reference. Again, I just copy the test case ID and make the new test case ID.
006.
There you go, 006. Make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So that's what I'm saying. It depends on the company. So all the step I wrote it here or do like the 2 or 3 times, this is my regression testing. Remember that. This is all my regression testing. Now, if the company tell you to do that, you can do it. If they say like,
So-
okay, you don't need to write down the separate test case for the regression. You can use the same test case for the regression. You can use the same test case, just make the step, whatever the things made before it was failed, you just need to make as a pass, take a screenshot, just close the test case. That's it, done.
Okay, got you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Anything else or any other questions about regression, bug life cycle?
I just want to make sure to get verification. So, from the when it's like consider like going to look for the fix, that's the first regression, right? And then the quick regression, is that like testing all the TC login or the specific TC login that you were working on?
So the first regression is related with the defect or bug, right?
Mhm.
And the second one, I told you, let's say like I executed the whole test case, the whole group of test case for the login functionality. I have 20 test cases is here, right? I
20,
tested
yeah.
everything is working fine.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to push only this login functionality to the production, correct?
Mhm.
So since I have tested, let's say 3 weeks back, right? And I start working on the Facebook homepage. Now, after 2 to 3 weeks, I have work done with the login. Then the team decided to push that login functionality to the production, right? Since it's been for 3 weeks or a month or 2 weeks, right? Your manager or your lead or the senior, they're saying like, okay, before that code moved to the production, can you do the quick regression? Now, what I'm gonna do with the quick regression means, do I need to execute all 20 test cases? No. Because since I already worked on this login functionality, right? I know exactly how many test cases or what type of test case I have written and execute already, right? So the quick regression would be basically few of the happy paths or one of the happy paths or few of the negative validation. I just quickly double check, I enter my username, password, click on login. Okay, it's working fine. Good. What I can do, I just like make this field as a blank, enter one of my user, write password, try to log in. Okay, I can see the message, which is fine. Basically, like once I put this error message might be, I can see, right? This is my expected result. So I can see that, which is means like it's fine. So this is for the quick regression. You don't need to validate like all 20 test cases for the quick regression. That's why this is the quick regression, just to making sure that before you deploy something to the final push or final production move, you're gonna validate what of the existing stuff you already worked on it, that's working fine or not. It's a very quick regression. That's what they said, it's a quick regression. Make
Ah.
sense?
No, now it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions so far? All right. If you guys don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining in the class today. All I need to do, like, I'm gonna send that video to you guys at end of tonight. Sometimes I need to send it to you, and I'll see you in the next class.
And please send the pictures, all the bugs and bugs.
Oh, you said the slides?
Yeah, the slides.
Yeah, I'll send it to you along with the video link. All right.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in the next class. See you
Thank you.
on Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. That's right.
Right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.